Hey guys, I'm Vasily. I'm an AI architect with Converge.io. This video is meant to walk you through workspaces and how you can get a workspace launched in Converge so you can get to work in developing your end-to-end machine learning and AI pipelines. If you haven't already, you can open up your browser and head to your Converge instance. Inside of a project, you'll see there are a lot of options. You can select workspaces, and very simply, you can choose to start a workspace in Converge by just providing a title name, going ahead and selecting the compute that you would like to allocate to your workspace. If you don't know what this means, there's also a video on compute that walks you through what these templates do and how you can create your own if you need something more specific for your workload. In this case, you get to select the number of CPUs, the gigabytes of RAM, as well as if you want to attach a GPU environment to this workspace. This is also where you can size up your workspace for more intense workloads, and also take advantage of clustered distributed environments for things like Ray or Modin. This is your chance to select exactly what you're going to require for the work you're going to be doing. So I'll go ahead and leave it on the medium here. Now, you can also, at this stage or after the workspace has been launched, select to enable a dataset or to attach a dataset to this workspace. There's also another video on datasets that goes over exactly how you can add your own datasets and how you can look at the various commits and versions for each dataset. So in this case, for the dataset that you want to use, you can very simply just select the commit as well. Converge is version controlled across every single asset that it manages, and so you can choose to always work on the same version of a dataset, even though that dataset might constantly be changing. Now, you can also now at this stage select the image that you want to be loaded on the hardware that's going to be provisioned, on the resource, the compute that you selected. So if you selected a CPU, you can then go ahead and take the Converge standard CPU image that's enabled here by default, or if you selected a different type of environment, you can go ahead and select now a very custom image. For instance, we partner with NVIDIA and Intel. Take a look at our containers video if you want some more details there. And this is where you can now take advantage of those specific images to actually enable the environment that you're going to require, have everything pre-installed and optimized to run on the hardware that you selected. In this case, I just selected a medium CPU instance, and so I'll go ahead and take the default CPU for this example. And then you can also create volumes. A volume is basically your own very large thumb drive, whatever size you would like it to be, that you can now attach to any workspace that you work on, and you can take these across multiple workspaces, multiple projects. They will be attached and continue to exist after your workspace is spun down and destroyed. Now, in advanced settings, you can also specify things like local folders, as well as select the exact commit of the workspace file system that you'd like to use. Like everything else, the files in the project directory are version controlled, so you can always choose to pick up from a point that you left off, or any particular sync that you created. Once you've made your selections, simply click Start Workspace, and that will then trigger the initialization process. You'll see the output here on the screen as Converge goes and allocates the compute that you selected, grabs the image from the Docker registry that's specific to what you selected on the previous screen, and then once it has the image pulled down and has allocated the compute, it'll go ahead and initialize the environment. It'll launch the container. It'll go ahead and get a IP address that it will then attach to this session and make available to you here through the UI. And then it'll go ahead and actually download the entire file system that you have attached to that particular project. and update any particular scripts or run any particular pre-run files that you've specified. And that is an important point. In your file system, you're able to create a script called prerun.sh, and inside of that script, any commands that you put into that sh file will be executed at this stage. And so at this stage, as the environment is spinning up, once the compute is allocated and the image is live and the operating system has been installed, it will run your script, and that can then install various additional software components. It can do things like wget particular files and unzip them and have them ready for you when the environment is launched and ready to go. It can also modify various versions or rebuild particular dependencies. You're really free to choose what you put in that prerun.sh, and it's the method that you can very tailor and customize your environment. Beyond that, once that runs, everything else is just being triggered by the actual deployment itself, and Converge is managing all of that for you, so you don't actually have to do anything. Here we see that the image has been loaded successfully, and now the Jupyter Lab environment, which is what we selected for this workspace, is being set up, and all of the TensorBoard plugins that are going to be enabled and that we'll see here are also being installed and verified. Another point that I'll mention is that we did just take the default Jupyter Lab here, but with workspaces in Converge, you're also able to spin up VS Code environments as well as RStudio and other IDEs that can be enabled. You're also free to select to continue using a local IDE. So take, for instance, pycharm. If you're a pycharm user and you want to continue to leverage that pycharm IDE on your laptop, you can do so, and we do have documentation on how you can then just access the workspace remotely from pycharm, which will allow you to continue to develop locally. However, when you execute or click run, it'll actually then run the code on your Converge resources, and you can then just attach it to any particular workspace. You can select the compute and the image as we did for this particular workspace, but then you can continue using your IDE instead of, as we see here, the Jupyter Lab that is now launched and available for us. Once the IDE is deployed, you get a fully working and fully managed environment right there in the Converge IO browser interface. So you don't actually have to switch interfaces or switch UIs or anything like that. You're fully enabled in the same tab that you were in before, so no changes there. Now, at this stage, you can select to create a new notebook. You can have access to a Python console, as well as things like a terminal, where you can now execute any terminal commands. This is just like having your own computer that's been deployed for you. You also can create new files, markdown files for README and other use cases, as well as even create diagrams. So you can also manage your architectural diagrams and drawings through Converge and have those all managed and saved off into the same file system. So you have all of that available to you, and then as you're developing, you can always do a custom or a manual synchronization. We also do periodic syncs as development is happening. If you come into your terminal and you run a lot of commands and you really customize and tailor this workspace to a point that you feel you'd like it to always be that way, you can actually click Build Image at this point. And Build Image will then go ahead and create a container based on the image that you have here and make that available to you in the drop-down, so you can select that container as your starting point in other projects and for future workloads. You have a variety of other options to choose from. You can choose to have Git integration enabled, at this stage, where you can then connect to an external Git repository. You can also fire git clone commands and just point to a Git repository and hit clone and have that file located here for you. You now have access to all of the other areas of Converge from within your workspace. So like I mentioned earlier, you can choose to attach a data set at this stage. You can select components from the AI library. You can run experiments and view those experiments in this page. And you can also deploy applications right here from the workspace UI. And so if you've developed a Dash application and you want to go ahead and test it, you can publish it here. This is where you can also see information related to the workspace that you just launched, like we selected the Converge image and a medium compute. And this is the start commit that we are working off of. You also have access to a TensorBoard session. So if you do kick off a training job and you want to monitor that training job, or you've logged out some tensor session material, you can actually then come right into the TensorBoard session and start viewing that. And my aspect ratio is a bit off here, so forgive that. Now, this is where you can then either live or after the fact go ahead and view all of your TensorBoard related logging. And that is workspaces, folks. So thank you for watching this video, and watch the other videos to find out more about the remaining components of Converge and how you can move now from workspaces into experimentation and the rest of your end-to-end pipeline. Thanks.